and our government are not straight with their audience, with the people they serve. And I quite frankly don't understand it, but it is definitely happening. So one prime example is the memorial for Officer Sicknick and what happened to Officer Sicknick. First, we talked a little bit about this last night. The memorial, nearly a month after he died, a lot of us believe that this was stretched out on purpose to bring it as close as possible to the impeachment trial that starts next week, to give it an extra emotional charge. Also this, how did Officer Sicknick die? Well, I believed, you probably believe, that he was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher. Now there's information that, well, that might not be true at all. I want to go to CNN, CNN, and thank Mark Levin, actually, for bringing this to our attention. Look at this from earlier this week. Tucked away, blinked, you might have missed it. Investigators struggle to build murder case in the death of U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick. Let's go inside this story, please. Investigators are struggling to build a federal murder case regarding fallen U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick, vexed by a lack of evidence that could prove someone caused his death as he defended the Capitol during last month's insurrection. It goes on. Authorities have reviewed video and photographs that show Sicknick engaging with rioters amid the siege, but have yet to identify a moment in which he suffered his fatal injuries, law enforcement officials familiar with the matter said. Also, to date, little information has been shared publicly about the circumstances of the death of the 13-year veteran of the police force, including any findings from an autopsy that was conducted by D.C.'s medical examiner. Finally, this for us, one possibility being considered by investigators is that Sicknick became ill after interacting with a chemical irritant like pepper spray or bear spray that was deployed in the crowd. Now, let's be very clear. Officer Sicknick was a hero. He died a hero. He died in the line of duty. But we were told one thing about the manner of his death that may not be true. Also, you probably haven't heard this. It was reported by the New York Post, but again, very scant attention. Let's take a look, please. According to the New York Post, an opinion piece, what the left wants to ignore about slain Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick. Sicknick was a Trump supporter himself. Far from sharing the views of the resistance, he had written letters to his congressman opposing Trump's impeachment. Isn't that wild? Isn't that something? Isn't that interesting? But they don't say that, do they? They don't report that because it does not comport to the narrative they want to drive home. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, they get to continue with their agenda, which now it's so obvious to everybody has nothing to do with the business of the people, and each seem to be exploiting the death of Officer Sicknick, exploiting the events of January 6th. Both seem to have a serious problem with Donald Trump. Donald Trump, of course. And what happened on January 6th was awful, but we deserve the truth, don't we? And this event should not be made worse with distortions, lies, and omissions. And speaking of distortions, lies, and omissions, well, I think we do need to talk about Jen Psaki, press secretary. Now, look, hasn't been caught in a lie, no, but boy, oh boy, she doesn't seem to know her stuff, does she?
It's the plane of today. I'll circle back with you if there's more to convey. I'll have to just circle back with you. We can circle back with you. I'm happy to circle back with you. I can circle back. Well, this is a priority to the president. It's an interesting question, but we'll circle back. I'm happy to circle back, but I'll have to circle back with you on it. It's a good question, but we'll circle back with you on this today.
Okay, she's not that good, not impressing too many people, even Democrats, believe me. But how about this? Just a few months ago, while she was working for Joe Biden, she tweeted something that was awful and, quite frankly, homophobic. Now, stay with me on this. Only in 2020 does Lady G get to push a bunch of debunked conspiracy theories while questioning Sally Yates, an American hero. Now, Lady G... Lady Gaga? No, not talking about Lady Gaga. That is apparently a beltway nickname for one United States senator, and there have been rumors about that senator's sexuality for a long time. Straight, gay. By the way, in this day and age, quite frankly, who cares? It has no bearing on anything. But Jen Psaki, as a 40-plus-year-old woman working for Joe Biden, thought she'd have fun with this as recently as August. This is not some stunt she pulled as a college sophomore like that CNN correspondent I heard about. Nope. And you know what? This hateful tweet, they don't ask her about it. Everyone's talking about it. I mean, it's out there. But you get to ask Jen Psaki questions every single day, and they won't bring up this unpleasant topic.
There are some groups that are pushing for the president to forgive all student loan debt. And where does he stand on that?
I just wanted to ask if President Biden will sign the refugee executive order today.
Has the president been briefed yet from Secretary Yellen's meeting this morning with financial regulators?
What is the president's view on the bill that Senator Romney is expected to introduce today?
You see, it was like some middle school 7th grade class got to go to the White House today and ask questions of the press secretary. Lame, lame, lame. Remember what they used to do to Kayleigh McEnany? Every question was designed to ruin her life. They never laid a glove on her, though. Folks, I had a very vivid example today in my life about how rigged the system is and how those reporters down there do not have their eye on the ball at all. Here's something I want you to know about me. I love McDonald's. I go all the time. So after a recent trip, I tweeted about it, but I made up about 90% of the tweet, okay? Twitter's not a serious environment, right? You have fun on it. You say all kinds of stuff, right? I do. Do you? Are you on Twitter? Let me show you what I did today, about 10 o'clock this morning. I think it's great. All right, there's my tweet. I went to McDonald's and there was no McFish. I love saying McFish. It's funnier than fish fillet on the menu. What the hell? When did that happen? Is it permanently banned or is it just my local McDonald's? I demanded to see the manager. Not true. But they accused me of being a male Karen, so I walked out. I touched on some social issues, I think. I had a little bit of fun. I amused myself. Well, this tweet went like kind of super duper viral. Let me show you something here. 4 million impressions, okay? That's like a big deal. For a little while, it was trending, okay? Let's see here. World Cancer Day was #1. AOC lied. That's another story, was #2. My McFish was #4. Greg Kelly has people confused after sharing that story. And it made news. The Huffington Post wrote about it. All right. So here's what the media were not focusing on today. Here I am, an anchor, having a little fun on Newsmax, and I know exactly what I'm doing. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, the president of the United States, goes to the State Department to make a big speech. Joe does not leave the White House very often. And guess what? Being Joe Biden, he told a big fat lie to the world.
You have great personal courage. I've been with some of you when we've been shot at.
I've been with some of you when we've been shot at. Oh, Joe, that's an old tall tale. He said before, he's talking to diplomats. Some of them have been in hot spots around the world. And Joe has said before that he's been shot and he's been called out on it, shot at. Let's take a look at the headline the last time he was caught, okay? 2007. You take all the troops out, you better have helicopters ready to take those 3,000 civilians inside the green zone, where I've been 7 times and shot at. 7 times in the green zone, I believe that. And shot at? Nope. I think there's one more. He had to revise it. No one got up and ran from the room. It wasn't that kind of thing. I was near where a shot landed. Had to change the story a little bit later. Come clean, okay? But he's president now. And he's also kind of a congenital liar. We've shown you evidence of that. Anyway, that's pretty bold stuff. The president of the United States, again, as soon as he said it, I'm like, I remember when he got caught the last time. You would think that that would be a big story, you know, right? Joe Biden lying. Well, let's take a look right here. A Google News search of Joe Biden at the State Department. Let's see. Joe Biden declares America is back and announces major foreign policy shift, reversing Trump foreign policy, live updates. It's all what the administration wants, okay? All kind, vanilla stories. Only one news organization wrote this story so far, the New York Post. And thank goodness for the New York Post. They also were not afraid to write about Hunter Biden's laptop. Remember that? All right. But Joe, he has a hard time with the truth. He sometimes blames it on, just absent-mindedness. He's been doing that for about 30 or so years. That was 33 years ago, 15, 48 years. Joe Biden is no better at linking the mouth with the mind, or maybe he is. I don't know. All right, folks, what'd you think, huh? Oh, and thanks again to the good people at McDonald's. Only kidding, okay? And thank you. We'll be right back. Professor Dershowitz was right, and he was brilliant a year ago defending President Trump in the United States Senate during that impeachment hoax. He's not back this time. I wonder why. Professor Dershowitz, we got a trial next week. You're good at this stuff. Why aren't you on this case, sir?
Well, I'm defending the Constitution in the court of public opinion. I didn't want to have to defend the president's speech. I defend it on constitutional grounds. I don't approve of the speech that he made prior to the invasion of the Capitol, but it was perfectly protected by the Constitution. And I don't think there's jurisdiction in the Senate to put him on trial once he's left office. And I'm going to continue to make those arguments in the court of public opinion.
Okay. I mean, you didn't approve of the speech, but still, this is a great opportunity. And again, I don't know. I'm just curious. Like, court of public opinion is one thing. Actually, let me ask you this. This seems like a far weaker case than the one a year ago. Far simpler to defend, and perhaps it's not even worth the effort. We talked to some of the lawyers who are involved, and we said, hey, maybe don't even show up. I mean, there's no chance that they're going to win. Why even honor the proceedings? Why even dignify them? Is it because it's a simple case?
It's not only a simple case, it's political theater, and I'm neither a politician nor an actor. The best evidence of political theater is Jamie Raskin, my former student, issuing this letter today demanding that the president testify. That's just pure showmanship. It's a game of political chicken. If the president responds as he did through his lawyers that he's not going to testify, they're going to go, nah, see, the president won't testify. He must have something to hide. They know that he was not going to testify. No lawyer would allow a client to walk into a perjury trap, into a hostile environment where he wouldn't be asked questions. He would be accused. I'm sure the president would love to appear in front of the former president, in front of the Senate, just to have his say, but his lawyers are correctly advising him not to participate in this political theater.
Hey, that Jamie Raskin, your former student, congressman now. And you know what's interesting? In 2017, January, he stood up, and you know what he did? He objected to the electoral count. The same thing the left is saying is a traitorous, seditious act. You know, the thing that happened on January 6th when the objection. He did the same thing in January of 17. Did you know that?
Well, and I'm sure he objected to the 2000 election, as I did and many others did. That's our right. We have a right to demand recounts, to demand judicial review. That's part of being an American. You challenge. It's part of being a lawyer. And to impeach a president because he, maybe erroneously, made statements about the election, which are particularly covered by the Constitution, it's political speech at its core, would do so much violence to the Constitution. It would do so much damage long term to the Constitution. And I think this impeachment thing is going to hurt the Democrats. It's going to hurt the Constitution. And it's going to hurt all Americans. You know, if you read the brief, and I've read it now thoroughly and written 2 articles about it, it basically says that the Senate can impeach any of us. There's no statute of limitations. There's no limitation that the person has to hold office or ever hold office. Anybody who may want to run for president in the future. Look, if the Republicans come up with a young, viable, terrific candidate to run against Biden in 2024, the Democrat House can just impeach that person and then disqualify him from running. Do we really want several hundred members of Congress to tell 200 million American people who vote who we should vote for and who we can't vote for? That's up to the public. It's not up to members of Congress. And so this is a very dangerous precedent that's being set. And by the way, the brief doesn't cite a single case ever in American history where a former office holder was ever disqualified from running for future office. This would be the first time. It's establishing a new and dangerous precedent, and I hope the Senate rejects it.
Man, President Trump just got under their skin big time. They still have Trump derangement syndrome, and President Trump is now in Florida. By the way, this to me is the open and shut nature of the case. This little piece of evidence from January 6th, the president speaking to that peacefully assembled crowd.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
I mean, isn't it like right there, open and shut? We had Mr. Castor on last night. He is one of the lawyers. I mean, like, that's it right there. He said it out loud.
No. Understand, the president didn't actually say that. How do I know the president didn't say that? Because it wasn't on CNN, and it wasn't on PBS, and it wasn't in the media. So the president obviously couldn't have said it. You just made it up. You probably just created that tape, because I believe CNN, and CNN didn't show that. And recently on Frontline, they had a whole show on Trump, and they showed that speech, but they left out that phrase, just the way they left out the term when he talked about good people on both sides, saying, I don't include neo-Nazis or white nationalists. They left that out. The kind of editing they're doing, the doctoring of tapes that's going on at CNN. I'm suing CNN for doctoring the tape of my presentation in front of the Senate when they took out the phrase illegal or unlawful, suggesting that I thought the president can do anything he wants, even engage in illegal conduct. So you just can't trust some of the media to tell you the truth. Of course, when he said peaceful and patriotic, that's the end of the case. That makes everything he said covered by the First Amendment to the Constitution.
You know, it's great. These days, you don't need the media. The media is plural for medium. You got to go through it. They can distort it. You can access all of this stuff, that speech that he gave in its entirety. The moment in Trump Tower where he specifically said, find people on both sides, except the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists. I'm not talking about them. And you're right. They always delete that. They always leave that out. They always omit it.
You know, Jefferson, who once said after he was president, those who don't read any newspapers are better informed sometimes than those who read the wrong newspapers. And if you don't watch CNN and don't watch some of these other stations, you're much better informed than you do, because they mislead you. They tell you things that didn't happen, and they don't tell you things that did happen. And it's really a tragedy, because Americans think that they can believe the facts that they've seen on television, and they just have to check for themselves.
And it's getting, now we got to worry about checking for ourselves, because Google and YouTube, you know, that used to be the raw data, and now they're playing games as well. Well, Professor Dershowitz, thank goodness you're in the court of public opinion and you're still making things happen.
You can hear on my podcast, The Dersh Show, every day.
Which is one of the hottest podcasts around, and it's very entertaining, by the way, in addition to being quite informative. The Dersh Show, wherever you get podcasts, and they're free, by the way. Good stuff. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Pleasure.
You bet. Take care. So on the left, that's former Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, ran for president. Now he's being sworn in as transportation secretary. Good for him. Now, Mayor Pete happens to be gay. And why do I mention that? Because Pete can't shut up about it, okay? That was the story of his campaign. I think so what? He thinks this is what it's all about. And guess what? So does the White House.
So there are still key positions that have not moved through the confirmation process that we are eager to see move forward. We have seen, though, some progress in the last week or so, and a number who have moved forward. Former Mayor Pete Buttigieg, of course, yesterday just confirmed as the first LGBTQ secretary in a cabinet. He's going to play a pivotal role on our economic planning, but there's more to be done.
Well, not only has the White House been celebrating what they term the first openly gay member of a presidential cabinet, so is the media. But guess what? They're all wrong. Former acting director of national intelligence, Rick Grinnell, he was the first openly gay cabinet member. Rick, welcome back to Newsmax. Generally speaking, we don't dwell on this, but let's face it, they're all wrong. I mean, and the reporting, and the statements from the White House, how do you feel about this? Because, quite frankly, you were the first.
Yeah, look, if I wanted to go into all of the ways that the media were wrong, I'd have a really long list, and I get really charged up about a whole bunch of other things, including the fact that they called Hunter Biden's laptop Russian disinformation, and that no one has still been held to account for that. 50 former intelligence officials said that that was true, and it's not true. So I got a long list of things that I would get really charged up about. Look, this is an irrelevant characteristic. We in the Trump administration certainly didn't keep lists. We didn't ask people. And matter of fact, after Donald Trump appointed me to acting DNI, I moved from Berlin, where I was the ambassador, where I was confirmed as ambassador. And because of the Vacancies Act, you get to move into an acting position if you are Senate confirmed. And so I took over the intelligence agencies as acting director in a temporary basis until they found somebody. It was never the plan for me to be there permanently, but I did take it over temporarily. And I remember the moment in the Oval Office when Ivanka Trump came in and said, "Congratulations, today is historic." And I knew what she was talking about, but President Trump said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, by appointing Rick, you're the first president to have a gay person in their cabinet." And the president's response was classic. He was like, "Come on, it's 2020. And so I love that about the president. He doesn't care. He didn't even, think about that in terms of how the qualifications go. That's what we see on the left constantly.
That is very cool.
Numbers, they keep lists, they keep stats, they have identity politics, and it's embarrassing. It's condescending.
Yeah, and a little exhausting, too. Well, anyway, now that we've gotten through that, I would like to ask you about the cancel culture. I mean, let's face it, they're trying to cancel President Trump. It kicked him off Twitter. They're trying to now prevent him from running for office again. It's horrible. Are you feeling the heat? I know a lot of Trump alumni, they're coming for folks like you. Are you feeling shade from the culture because of your past service?
Not a bit. Not a bit. I'll tell you, you may feel it if you go on to Twitter for a couple of minutes, and you may feel it in Washington, D.C., but I got a real big surprise for those reporters and Politico types that hang out in Washington, D.C. The rest of America is furious at this. I even know Biden supporters in California who cannot believe that we're in the position where we're canceling or we're telling our kids to run out of the room with their fingers in their ears because they can't have a conversation. This is crazy. We've got to get back to diversity and tolerance. Remember that phrase? We need a country where you can pick up your neighbor's mail when they're out of town, even though you disagree with them politically. You have a key to their house. I mean, that's what I have in my community. This is what Americans want. This is what Americans do, and yet in Washington, it's somehow odd.
Rick, I'm afraid we don't have too much time. There's one more thing I want to run by. It was a beautiful picture that you posted to social media.
The president called, and he was so great. He wanted to talk to me as well as my partner, Matt. And so we got on the phone with him together. We talked for a long time about a whole bunch of different issues, certainly about California politics, about his administration, about hires, and critiqued some of the hires. It was a real personal moment. I think he was very reflective. I love those moments with the president because he's totally focused on the people. He's really not an elitist, and those are the moments when it really comes out. So I try to keep my conversations with him very private, but also remind people of the moments in a general way.
Love it. And that's quite a picture. Very special moment indeed. Well, Rick Grinnell, former acting director of national intelligence and future who knows what. Anything in mind? What's next?
I've got nothing for you, Greg.
All right. Well, I hope you're thinking about something because from my vantage point, the future looks very bright indeed. Thank you, sir, very, very much. All the best.
Always good to see you.
All right. Scott Atlas, you heard that name a lot during the COVID situation. Former special advisor to President Trump, now a Hoover institution senior fellow. And sir, thank you for all you did in fighting COVID and helping the president. How are you tonight?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Number one, I'd like to get your take on this whole issue of double masking. It's received some attention, some conflicting guidance. Dr. Fauci says the CDC may soon recommend all Americans wear 2 masks to enhance their protection against the coronavirus. How do you feel about double masking?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if the CDC recommended that. They've been all over the place on a lot of their recommendations. That's fine. I'm for people doing anything it takes to allow them to function in society. If you don't want to go out without a mask, wear a mask. If you want to wear 3 masks, wear 3 masks. If you don't want to go into a restaurant or on an airplane ever again, that's okay. But we need to open up society and do it so that people can function, because these restrictions and lockdowns are destroying people, not just economically, but their health. So, we really need to get the country back open. And, if you really want to look at the data on masks, well, that's a very radioactive issue. I try to point out data, and you get destroyed for doing that because people really don't want to hear the data. They just want to use the word the science, even though they don't know the science or they didn't really read the science, they don't understand the science, and then they speak completely against the science. So nothing will surprise me with masks, but I just want to get the country open.
Same here. And by the way, I know they gave you a hard time. The media did. Some, producer at CNN trying to tell you your business. You've held top jobs in medicine at places like Stanford University, and you've operated at the very highest levels of this field. And you got the fake news telling you how it's done. I personally was shocked by that. How do you feel after your experience in Washington?
Well, I'm glad I'm not in Washington, I could tell you that. Washington and the news, I wouldn't say it's fake. I would say there's a bunch of vicious liars in the news. That's sad. The country, the media really is a disaster in many ways. And they say vicious, complete lies, and then they keep repeating them. And then those lies are taken as fact. And, it's sad. I was naive. I went to Washington because the president asked me to help in the biggest crisis in a century. I'm a health policy expert. I was asked to help in healthcare policy because there was no one on the task force in healthcare policy, frankly. But I was asked to be an advisor to the president to help the country. I would have helped if President Obama would have asked me, if President Biden would have asked me, if President Clinton would have asked me. That wasn't the issue. I didn't realize that everyone there was political, was out for either political motives or preserving their own image and their own influence. It's a despicable kind of place, but I think we all know that. It's very sad. If I would have known that, I'm not sure what I would have done when I was asked.
I'm sorry you had that experience. It doesn't surprise me. I've heard that from a lot of people who try to do the right thing by the country in federal service. And wow, it can set people a step back. But I think you did a lot of good there. And to hear you talk like that, well, I'm sorry you had to go through that. Dr. Birx, I'm neutral on her, but she went on a Sunday show a little while back to set the record straight. She was apparently frustrated that the president was receiving multiple streams of information. I want to play this for you.
It took a while after I arrived in the White House to remove all of the ancillary data that was coming in. I mean, there was parallel data streams coming into the White House that were not transparently utilized. And to this day, until the day I left, I'm convinced there were parallel data streams because
disinformation.
I saw the president presenting graphs that I never made. So I know that someone or someone out there or someone inside was creating a parallel set of data and graphics that were shown to the president.
To me, Dr. Atlas, Dr. Birx is speaking not like a doctor, but more like a bureaucrat. I mean, who cares if the president is getting more information? I think the more the better. Your reaction to what you just heard?
Well, I was stunned when I heard that, because anyone who's offended that the president of the United States is receiving information from advisors other than one single person, anyone who's offended by that has a serious problem understanding her role. This is sort of stunning to me, that people should be personally threatened because other people are providing information. The president takes advice and took advice. I saw it myself from people inside the task force, outside the task force, inside the White House, inside other parts of the administration, as well as some of the world's best epidemiologists and medical scientists who had nothing to do with being in the administration. They came into the Oval Office. Thank God he took advice from multiple different sources instead of just one. And, I think it would be frightening if the president rejected or never saw information from multiple sources. The American people should be thrilled that he got information from other sources. And anyone who's personally threatened by that has really ought to look in the mirror and re-examining her role there. Secondly, I think what was important about that interview was it was really outrageous to imply or say that I ever fed the President of the United States false, misleading, or non-scientific information. That is an outrageous, vicious lie. And apparently someone was so threatened that she thought the best way to make herself look good is to try to tear other people down. Where I come from at Hoover Institution, you walk into a room, there's a lot of smart people with a lot of knowledge. You better know what you're talking about. The way to win the case is to know more, to read more, to understand what's going on, not to tear other people down.
Dr. Scott Atlas, thank you for your contributions to the country. Thank you for coming on Newsmax. We'd love to have you back soon.
Okay.
All the best. Many thanks indeed.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Dr. Scott Atlas, former special advisor to President Trump. You can find him at the Hoover Institution. We'll be right back.